I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Peabody City Council Finance Committee meeting. Present for the committee tonight are Councilors Gould, Rossignol, Turco. I'd like to ask Councilor Welton if you'd sit in for Councilor Manning Martin and myself as chair. Also present this evening are Councilors Charest, Saslar, and O'Neill. We have two items on the agenda. First item is a bond order, capital improvements. We have a late communication number 2, which I'd accept a motion to receive.
Moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion from Councilor Gould to receive the late communication number 2. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. This late communication 2 will replace the item that you had in your packet. So this is capital improvements in an amount of $5 million. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to you and all the council members. Before I begin, I just want to thank all of you for being here this evening for this special meeting. I think I've spoke to a number of you individually, but last Thursday, when this was on the agenda, I ran into a traveling issue. I was in Kentucky with my daughter at a basketball tournament, and they ended up winning a couple of games, which pushed back my flight time considerably, and I didn't get in until much later than I had initially planned. And also, Mr. Gingras, our finance director, was out of state also, and I just felt that we needed to be here for this important presentation and to be able to answer any questions that you may have. So I just want to thank you for accommodating us and having the meeting this evening. I'm here today when we have pretty much a full team. We have our finance director, Mike Gingras, our fire chief, Joe Daly, police chief, Tom Griffin. We have from a couple of captains from our police department as well, Scott Richard and Eric Zawacki. And also very happy to have Frank Gwynn here, our IT director, and I'm hoping, and it sounds like things are a little bit better in the auditorium, but this is just a short-term fix. Also our DPW director, Bob Labossiere. So I wanted to present today a capital improvement request. It's been some time since I've come forward to you on a capital request. I've tried to do it every year, but more likely it's been 2 years when I brought forward these requests. Certainly, these are items that I feel are very necessary, but certainly there's always items that we could add or, we could add down the line. So these things are always being evaluated and reviewed, but this is one we wanted to bring forward. We felt the time was right now that we're moving on from COVID, and we're able to tackle the budget like we did last month, bringing back employees. Well, those employees need some vehicles and some other equipment. So I wanted to ask today for a capital request of $5 million, and that it would be appropriated for the following projects. And I'm going to speak briefly on each of those projects, but also much more intelligent people are here that can speak to more specifically and certainly answer any questions that you may have. First is the police HVAC. I think some of you are aware we've been having major problems at the police station over on Allen's Lane. That building has been showing its age for quite a while, but in particular, we've had problems with our HVAC system, which has been devastating to the department because of the hot weather. To have HVAC difficulties has really put a strain on the department. We're looking at a $250,000 request in order to make the necessary repairs to that HVAC system and get that police station as best we can back to working order. Cruisers, we're requesting today 7 additional cruisers or new cruisers. Those are at $55,000 a piece. And that's pretty self-explanatory as well, that those cruisers are necessary for our department. Initially, I was going to ask for 6. I did want to notice Councilor Turco. He and I had spoke to a number of police officers, some union members, as well as Chief Griffin, and we felt that 7 was the right number for the cruisers at this time. Microwave repeaters, it's a $1.2 million request. I am going to defer on that to Chief Daly and Chief Griffin to speak about the communication needs for the emergency system, and they will be able to speak to that much more in detail. Defensive equipment, tools, and training aids, that's also come from conversations with the police union and Chief Griffin, that there's a need for some equipment, some firearms, some additional items that they need in order to do their job, and we wanted to support them with that $50,000 request. Fire radios, pretty self-explanatory, and police radios are in there as well. $300,000 a piece. That's just getting complete new radio and radio systems for the police department and for the fire department. Ladder one truck, again, kind of self-explanatory. Some of those vehicles, those trucks, are showing in their age, and we just think it's an appropriate time to bring forward a new request. We've been trying to do that every couple of years to request a new fire truck, and we think this is the right investment at this time. Boiler replacements, that is specifically for the South Memorial School. The South Memorial School, I think many of you know, is the oldest school in the city, and both of those boilers need to be replaced. $95,000 per, a total of $190,000. School roof repairs, that $75,000 is specifically related to the Carroll School. There's been some significant leaks and some roof damage at that school. It's a rubber roof. It's a little different than some of the other roofs we have in the city, and we think $75,000 is necessary to do that work. We have a roofer ready to go, and looking forward to that project. Carroll School, we still kind of refer to it as a newer school, but it is almost 20 years old now, and just some necessary repairs need to be made, and the roof is at the very top of those repairs. The next item is the chiller replacement. That $125,000 is specific to a chiller at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School. That is, when you're driving down Peabody High School, in the back, kind of where the modular classrooms are, there's a section where there's two chillers that's specific for air conditioning at the high school, and one of them is completely gone. The other one, it probably has another few years left, but we just needed to replace one of those now. So it's a $125,000 cost. There are some vehicles and trucks for DPW and also for maintenance, pickup trucks, a couple of vans, and some specific to the Department of Public Works. Bob Labossiere can certainly answer questions on those. Some technology upgrade, that's primarily for some financial record upgrades we need to do, and Mr. Gingras can speak to that. Playground equipment, I wanted to touch on this for a minute. This money is designated for a number of pocket parks that we have in the city. Linda Jean, Whitney, Kiley School needs some work. Also, I'm concerned about the long-term future of the Ross Park Cytenny Playground. The Adventures for Angels is a playground that's, if not the best, one of the very best in the city. But that one is showing its age, and I'm very concerned about the long-term future, particularly the area that's primarily the wooden part of that area. So I think we need some funding for that. I know I'm missing a couple parks. Hold on one moment. There's a couple others that I'm concerned about. I will get back to that in a moment. And then also, finally, is a boom attachment. Again, Bob Labossiere will be better able to explain this, but this is an attachment that can be made to one of the trucks to help cut back grass and trees from roads, bike paths, and some other areas that we think will be great assistance to our operation there. I've tried to keep this particular request to vehicles, police and fire, public safety needs. They've had an extremely difficult year and a half performing because of the low numbers. It's been a very frustrating situation, and I can speak to that for a moment because we have some firefighters here, which are great. Because there have not been able to be any academies, specifically for the police, but also the fire academies have been significantly limited, and we have not been able to put police and fire candidates into those academies until very recently. The good news with the fire department is that we can bring in some people to start working for the fire department before they go to an academy. They typically do some in-house training, and we've been able to do that in the past. But the police department hasn't been able to put in any of the candidates into the academy until this past June. Just last month, we were able to put 2 candidates in, and we have plans for September and November to put additional candidates into those academies. As to the fire department, we had interviews today with 6 of the reserve candidates. Those candidates are very well qualified, and all of them have been given conditional offers of employment. And I feel like they'll be able to help the low numbers in the fire department as well. They have some requirements that they need to fulfill before they can be sworn in, but we're looking forward to getting our numbers in the police department and the fire department back to where they need to be. It's been a real struggle for the departments, and I'm very thankful they've been able to keep things going like they have the past year and a half. So those are the items that I wanted to present. I'm going to get some additional information as we go forward on specifically the parks. I thought I had that with me. I do not. It's still on my desk. But there are some other park projects that I'm a little bit concerned about that I wanted to have some funding for. And I can speak to some of the other projects that we have currently funded and that are in the works as well. We've been very fortunate to have community preservation be able to assist us every year, doing 2 or 3 projects per year. But I felt like this needed to supplement the work that the community preservation has done for us, and really attend to some of these playgrounds that have started to suffer a bit. So I'll get that information, but I wanted to present that, Mr. Chairman, and certainly ready, willing, and able to answer any questions, as well as any of our department heads that are here today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I get a motion to receive late communication 3?
I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, you heard the motion from Councilor Gould. Receipt late communication 3. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Gould, would you please read that one into the record, the July 14th email from Councilor Melville?
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to read the email?
Yeah, if you could just read the July 14th email from Councilor Melville to Councilor O'Neill.
It is from Councilor Melville to Council President O'Neill. Councilor O'Neill, I am unable to attend the special meeting scheduled for July 15th as my flight leaves at 6 p.m. on that date. I had scheduled this trip to coincide with the council's summer recess. Based on the requests impacting our first responders, I understand the timely nature of the request. I had studied the communication for the mayor in preparation for the July 8th meeting, and I would support this request. Sincerely, Councilor Ryan Melville. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Gould. Questions from the committee on the mayor's presentation?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, would you mind if I do have that information on the parks that I wanted to speak to, if that's okay?
Sure, absolutely, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So yeah, some of the parks that I'm concerned about, and I think I share that with all of you, because I know you're involved in certainly a number of the playgrounds and parks in our city. But I'm looking at Whitney, Kylie, Linda Jean, Cottage, Ross Park, Cytenny, Loris, McCarthy School, and the Carroll School playgrounds. Those are some, and there's others that we're concerned about. But we're looking at new playground equipment for a number of those pocket parks, and just starting the gradual replacement of some of those bigger parks. So those would be some of the items that I'm looking at specifically with this money. Just a couple of updates on where we are with a couple of the other park projects. Community preservation money we're able to obtain to do 3 projects. One is the Driscoll Rink. We are going to be putting in a kind of a multi-play area that's for futsal, which is another form of soccer, as well as street hockey, and we still have the capability to use that as an ice skating rink. We're working with Musco Electric, and we're expecting that this spring. Really trying to push to get that this spring. The Buckley track over next to the senior center on Central Street, we're doing the track completely over in that location. That's a very well-utilized track and it's really fallen on hard times. And then the other area is Lake Shore. We're putting in a pickleball court, doing the basketball court over again, and that work is actually scheduled for the end of this month. It should be completed in early August. Those items are ongoing, and we're hoping to have all of them done by the fall. The O'Connor lights over at behind the Welch School are complete. Those were done earlier with a capital request, and we are still working on a couple of other items regarding the Brown School playground, Brown's Pond Fountain, and the Healing Garden, which Councilor Gould has been working on, that we're getting ready to announce very shortly, a ribbon cutting and ceremony for that location. So I just wanted to give a quick update on those parks, those park projects. I think all of us just finally feel good that we're able to start getting to some real projects instead of just kind of trying to get past each day, which it's been like the last month and a half, or last year and a half. Now we're finally able to get to things that I think all of us want to get to. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to provide that additional information. Before we open up for questions, Chief Griffin wanted to just say a couple of words, if that's okay.
Chief Griffin.
Was it? Oh, okay. He'd like to wait.
Questions from the committee. Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor, thank you for bringing these items forward. I have a few questions. I'm going to be a little bit all over the place, considering with this request, it's kind of all over the place as far as police, fire, schools, roofs. The first question I have is with the updated late communication, obviously there's an increase in the request. With that, as far as the $385,000 for the cruises, that extra $85,000, how many cruises would that end up yielding?
Thank you. So initially, the request was $4.8 million. I did add an additional $200,000. It was $85,000 more that we added to that specific police cruiser line. It was $50,000 for the defensive equipment, tools, and training aids, and then I added $65,000 to the playground equipment from $150 to $215. So for the police cruisers, that is we're estimating, or we've been told, is $55,000 per cruiser. So $385,000 would cover 7 cruisers. And that came from conversations, again, with Chief Griffin, but also Councilor Turco and I did meet with some union members, and we felt that was, based on what they told us, the right number. And the $50,000 for the other items. And then I just felt that to make it $5 million, which made sense, I just thought there could be some additional playground equipment.
Thank you. You already answered. Another question I have regarding the technology upgrades, server, software, financial system. You also say that it's for human resources. Is that on the school side? Is that on the city side? I know our technology is woefully out of date, and we need to continually update our technology. I'm just wondering exactly where this money is heading.
So this is sort of like a phase one approach, and we're looking at about $40,000 for equipment change-outs over the next year or so, and then $200,000 dedicated to software, some of which would be human resources software, and then kind of a down payment towards replacing our financial system, which is we've had about 30 years, various degrees of it. And that's going to be north of $500,000. So this will just get us started with that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I guess my next question is regarding the microwave repeater. 2019, there was a request for, I believe, $530,000, and then this is 1.2. And I remember in 2019, it was a phased-in approach, so this is basically the second phase of that.
That's correct. It's actually phase 2 and 3, and this will complete the entire project.
Perfect. Where there wasn't a capital request last time, this is phase 2 and 3. So that would get you everything you need as far as the microwave repeater system?
Yeah, everything we have right now, phase one was to get the microwave antennas. And now we have the repeaters and receivers and radios. And the radios and the repeaters are all end of life, and they're being repaired with cannibalized goods.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I guess my next request or question is regarding the water department vehicle for a truck, and it looks like there was a truck that was lost in an accident. Did we ever get monies from the accident as far as an insurance claim, and was that applied to what we're looking for as a balance for a new truck?
We did recover some funds. I'm guessing it's approximately $20,000, but it's a $70,000 or $80,000 vehicle. And there was some funds that reside in our insurance account right now, and I don't know, without checking, I don't know how much is still there.
So is that money going to be applied to the truck as well?
No, that's not the intention. This is going to be a full bonding for that truck, and that money is used for various issues that come up when we have to co-pay repairs on traffic lights and things like that.
Okay, thank you. My next question is regarding the boom attachment. Looking through the material, I understand the need for it, definitely. Will there be a dredging attachment to this as well, at least looking at the document that I have in front of me, or is it just going to be for cutting grass, limbs, and to that like?
So it would be an attachment that goes in the front of our loader. You'll see them, Mass Highway uses them on the side of the highway a lot. It just reaches up and goes over guardrail or over slopes. It's just basically a cutting tool. It's not, doesn't dredge at all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councilor Rossignol. Questions? Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, to the mayor, if I would, through you to the mayor, and it's really not a comment, I mean a question, but you're trying to tackle a number of playground issues. It's unfortunate that, well, not unfortunate, but 215,000, is that enough? Nothing we can do at this point, but
No, it's probably not enough. We've established an agreement of support with the community preservation, where, and you're a member of the community preservation, where we're able to, usually obtain 150 to 200,000 a year to take that up. We're definitely going to be coming back next year with some additional projects. However, we just thought that this would be a way for us to tackle a number of these issues. I anticipate, particularly with a couple of the big ones, McCarthy, Ross Park, Carroll School, that there might be some additional funding we'll need at some point.
you are right on target about CPC, because they've always been in partnership with the city on improvement of playgrounds, and it's a great asset that we have. Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to acknowledge some firefighters in the audience. Thank you for your support. And I'd like to kind of digress and make a comment about the Peabody Community Connect program that is the fire department is initiating. I think it's a wonderful program. It's probably coming under Captain Lewis's work details, because he is the technology guy, but I don't mean to offend anybody that is working hard on that, but I think it's a great program. If any of our fellow councilors haven't seen it yet, go on Peabody Community Connect. Is that the correct website, Chief? PeabodyFire.org. Thank you. Thank you, Captain Lewis. No further questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gould. Other members of the committee. Councilor Wellen.
Thank you, Chairman McGinn. Thank you for allowing me to sit in on this meeting this evening. I have a couple questions, and I fully intend to support this request, just for some clarity and my own edification, being that this is actually the first budget process I've gone through that wasn't during a global pandemic. So if you could give me a little bit of latitude, that'd be appreciated. So I just did have a couple questions in terms of how this money's allocated. I do note that all of the amounts are even numbers, and I suspect, those are the best guess approximations. For instance, some of the larger ticket items, if the money is not spent on that item, is the balance then reverted back to the general operating budget for that particular department?
No, as best we can, we do estimate the cost. There's a number of costs in here that, could go up or down a little bit depending when we put them out for bid. Certainly Dan Doucette gets involved and puts these projects and the equipment. We have to get different pricing from different vendors. So those numbers will adjust, some of them a little bit. Anything over 50,000, we have to get put out for public bid. So those numbers could adjust, but those are our best estimates. Moving forward, if there's money saved, from what the number is shown, or if we don't do that project in full, that money stays in that category, and it could be used for additional items as long as they're related. Typically, we have to bring that forward to the City Council, but it's really just utilizing it in a similar fashion. We can't take Park and Rec money and use it for a police department. It has to be used for a Park and Rec kind of a purpose that way. So that's typically what's happened in the past.
Great, thanks for clarifying. And then the only other comment that I have, I know that this is a little outside of the purview of what we could possibly spend on regarding playground equipment, but I'd love to advocate, as Councilor Gould had mentioned, I think 215 is a great start, but if there's an additional way to tap into CPC funding, specifically, I'd like to see some playground equipment over towards Veterans Memorial Park. And again, I know that's through Peabody Housing Authority, but anything we could do to provide something over there, I think would be very much appreciated from that community. So, but again, I fully intend to support this, and thank you for the explanations.
The other two parks I wanted to mention that we anticipate work there this fall is Bart's Pond Park and Mars Park. We have equipment that's supposed to be coming in this fall to be installed.
Thank you, Councilor Welton. Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, I think this might be a question for Mr. Gingrich. It's in regards to the fire truck, Mike, and it's a financing question more. I thought, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Gingrich, the last truck we bought, I thought that was a lease. I wasn't a big fan of the lease idea, but are we getting away from the lease and just going to purchase them outright?
We actually bought two engines. One was leased and one was through capital over the last couple of years. And we did the lease to really try to expedite it, and at the end of the day, it ended up taking just as long. So we were going to maintain with the conventional bond issues. We save a little bit on interest.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping you would say, so we'll kind of get away from the whole leasing of equipment. Other than that, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Before we give a second, any other questions from other Councilor Sasslaw?
Thank you, Councilman McGinn. I just wanted to bring up one thing we got in the playground equipment, and I don't know if you knew this, Mr. Mayor, but on the playgrounds at the schools, you mentioned the Carroll, and when we put together a team, we put up the playground at the Burke School. One of the requirements was that we had to have a fund for repairs, and I believe I was looking at it probably in the last year. I think at the Burke School, I think it was like maybe up to $10,000. I don't think they've used it yet, but I only mention that because you mentioned the Carroll. I know some schools, they were built by the city, but I just mentioned that you might want to just check with the CPC if any particular city school playgrounds do have that repair fund. So if you can save some money. Wendy Minton did the whole Carroll. She helped me out a lot, and I know that they probably had a reserve, so maybe there might be 5 or 10,000 kicking around that. You could use it for another park and spend those money on those repairs that they were meant for. Other than that, I just want to thank, the police and the firefighters for what they've been doing in the last year, and I do plan on supporting your proposal tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sasslaw. Councilor Shrest.
Thank you, Councilman. Again, maybe through the mayor, I'm not sure if Mike would be able to answer this better. With numerous vehicles that's on the docket here to be purchased, and the sharp increase in the last month or so on prices, is this a hard number? I see some of these order forms are back in March. Is this something they'll hold true to?
I really don't have a good answer to that. I assume we're within the ballpark. I don't know.
So this isn't something they were contracted with?
Well, we had initial quotes that generally they're through the state contract, so that they generally don't deviate too much.
That's on a regular year, but this year is a little different with the increases, so.
It could change.
Is it a little cushion in there to make sure that, so it doesn't hold up and you have to come back and say,
Yes.
we couldn't order 7, we wanted 6, okay. Another question, probably for Bob, if I could. Bob, on the pamphlet here, we have the arm, the attachment arm for brush and grass and things like that. Have we had one of these yet, this operation?
I've been here 3 years and we haven't had one.
We've never had one.
I don't know if we've
so-
ever had one in the past.
Yeah, and, I see other cities and towns with this, and I think it's a great piece of equipment that we can most likely utilize very quickly, and I'm assuming that we contracted out in areas where we needed to use this before. Would I be correct?
Correct, yep.
Correct, so we'd be able to certainly cut back on contracted services by using this equipment. And I think that, if you're just looking everywhere throughout the city, it's probably being utilized, would be utilized relatively quick. So I do support that, and along with the police and fire, as I said before, I would always support the budgets of the services of police and fire, and certainly with the DPW. So I thank you for coming forward with your requests, and certainly going to honor it.
Thank you, Councilor Shrest. Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you letting me speak again. I fully intend to support this capital request. I just had 2 other questions. One is actually not on this, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Mayor. I know you had brought the West School roof to the council previously. Was that in a capital request, or was that through the MSBA?
So the West School roof was, that was an MSBA request under the Accelerated Repair Program. Covers roofs, windows, boilers, things of that nature. So no, that was put through the MSBA. We were approved for the West School roof. We're working with them now on schedules and on financing. But I anticipate that we will be coming forward back to the City Council at some point for the final number. We're looking at about 58%, 56 to 58% would be paid by MSBA, and then we would be responsible for the rest. So at some point, we'll be coming to you on that project. I am hoping that we do that project next summer.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And then the last question I have, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Gingras. So regarding the capital expenditure of what we're looking at is $5 million, how does that affect our bond rating with the current state of our free cash and our current financial situation?
We just sold bonds, about $7 million. We were downgraded to a AA3 because we more closely fit with those communities based on our reserves, but we still received a net interest cost of a little over 1%, so we're still in good shape. And I would anticipate that this issue, when it goes out in a couple of years, will it'll be in about $500,000 or $600,000 a year range. But because there's different assets with different life length of life, it's gonna fluctuate, you know. So once we advertise this and the council eventually adopts it, then it goes to bond council, and they review the useful lives of all the assets that we're going to purchase, and they'll have a better idea of what the debt service is going to be.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your response. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Rosendahl. Councilor Gould.
Did you need to speak, Mr. Mayor? Okay, thank you. I want to acknowledge Councilor Turco's diligence in working with the mayor on the increase of a cruiser from 6 to 7, and thank you, Councilor Turco, for working that hard. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor or to Mr. Gingras, how soon does it take for the actual cruisers to go into action for the city? I know they need them desperately.
Once the money
Captain
becomes
Rich.
available, we can actually put the orders in for the cruisers, and it all depends on supply. Right now, they're a little thin on supply, but hopefully we can get them within probably 4 to 6 weeks. Then we have to send them out for outfitting, which could take another probably month or so. So once I get the money, hopefully within about 2.5 months, we can have the cruisers on the road and running.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Gingras, how soon do we get the money, Mike? Thank you, Captain.
What we normally do is, once the city council authorizes the bond issue, that enables us to begin the purchasing process and place orders. And I would anticipate somewhere around mid-September to mid-October, late October, is when we'll actually go and borrow short-term for a year or so. Much of this $5 million to have cash in hand in order to make these purchases.
It could be we're still 4 or 5 months away from...
No, I would say we could order, this will be adopted at the beginning of September or end of August. So somewhere in September we could start placing orders.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Mr.
But no,
Okay.
that's close to it.
Thank you so much. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gould. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman McGinn. I'm not a member of this committee, but appreciate the opportunity to speak. We had a detailed package, and my questions were answered. I was mostly concerned about making sure we get the final phase done for the microwave system, so the first responders can, have the active communications going forward. And I just want to say I fully support this, not only making sure that we have the equipment for our Department of Public Services, taking care of the residents, but certainly, taking care of the parks, the upkeep that has to be done, and certainly, most importantly, making sure our first responders have the equipment they need to have to keep us safe. So, thank you. I plan on fully supporting this when it comes to the council later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Neill. Any other councilors? Yep, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. If it's okay, since we have a number of firefighters and police officers here, I did want to touch on very briefly just where the departments stand in terms of additional firefighters and police officers. I think all of us share, because I've heard from all of you in terms of concern about where we are with our numbers. So right now, our police department and our fire department are down from 8 to 12 men and women for each department, which is very concerning. An incredible amount of strain has been put on all of our police officers and firefighters, particularly over the last year and a half, as their numbers have been down. And again, it's related to the fact that we've been unable to get our candidates into the academies. And it's not a PBD issue, it's been an issue for cities and towns across, well, probably across the country. Now that we have academies back, we're going to take full advantage. But I wanted to give kind of a quick update. I've met with union leadership with both departments to kind of fill them in following our budget meetings last month. But in terms of the police department, we do have 2 candidates that are in the January Academy. We also have some spots we're looking at in September and November. Right now, we are pretty much depleted our reserve account for police. We, a couple of weeks ago, ordered the list to hire new reserves, and over 22, I believe it was, or 24 candidates came in to sign of their interest. And right now, it's in the police department's hands doing their background checks on those candidates. So we expect to move pretty quickly to make sure we secure those additional spots come September and November and academies going forward. But I did want to say to the police department that all of us here, and it was unanimous, we all voted to make sure all those positions are fully covered to make sure they're all back to where we were pre-COVID. So it's going to take a little time to get the numbers back, and I'm sure it's going to be a strain this summer and into the fall as we put everybody back in. But we are going to be having that full allotment of police officers, and it's been fully budgeted at that time. For the fire department, I mentioned earlier, we had interviews today in which we interviewed and gave conditional offers for 6 new firefighters. We expect them, they have to do some testing requirements, and we're very hopeful in the next few weeks that we'll have those tests taken care of and we'll be able to swear them in. They will come in to do in-house training with Chief Daly and his team, and then get into those academies hopefully very shortly. As well, we are going to be ordering the reserve list, a new reserve list for the fire department. My intention and plan is to put the 6 on now, and then at least another 6, possibly more, depending on retirements and other things, in the fall and early winter, to get that department back to where they need to be. It's been a concern for all of us, again, that those numbers are low in the police department and fire department. But we wanted to take the step today to get the equipment and the vehicles that all of you need, and we're going to get those numbers back up. And again, I'm very grateful, I know we all are, for the work. A lot's been put on each of your departments and all of you, and I think you've done a terrific job through the most trying of circumstances. So I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of an update on that. I'm certainly working with the chiefs. They've been very vocal in advocating for the departments, and I know the union leadership has as well. So more information to come, but I feel like we're on the right track. And today was great. I met 6 wonderful candidates that I think will be a great asset to the fire department, hopefully in the very few weeks here that we'll be able to swear them in, and we'll be having a ceremony, certainly alerting everybody to that time. So I wanted to take the advantage of the moment while some of the officers and firefighters are here to fill them in.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any other questions from the committee or other councilors on the capital request? Seeing none, Mr. Gingras? In the budget for fiscal '22, we had $7,675,000 roughly for debt service. What impact will this have on the FY22 budget number?
This shouldn't have any impact on that line item. It'll have impact on our short-term interest line item because we'll borrow, actually it won't even have impact on that because we'll borrow September, October. That interest will be due September, October of the next fiscal year. So it'll be part of the FY23 budget.
Great, so no miss here in terms of what the recent, great, thank you. All my other questions were answered through the course of the great questions that came from the various councilors. What is the will of the committee? Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to approve the mayor's request dated July 13th, 2021 for a bond order, which is specifically for capital improvements in the amount of $5 million. I can read the specifics if you'd like.
Councilor Gould, I'm going to waive the reading. I'll do that at the report out for the sake of efficiency.
So motion is as stated. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
You heard the you heard the motion from Councilor Gould to draft and advertise on the motion. Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Gould,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol,
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Second item on the agenda is transfer of funds, various transfers. Mr. Gingras.
Yes, this is a request that should carry us through about 95-98% of closeout. We just paid our last group of bills for FY21 today, and so once we evaluate that, there may be some final adjustments that come forward at the end of August to be approved in early September. The initial amount will cover basically snow and ice, some of the election overages and veterans overages, $193,000 from various department budgets, $514,000 from free cash unreserved fund balance, for a total of $707,000 for that portion. In addition, we're asking from available revenue at the golf course $100,000 to allow us to pay the first round of the note back to the CDA, which was due in May. And in addition to that, there was overages in outside services in our water enterprise fund, and we're asking for $450,000 from the current revenue to outside services to cover that shortage.
Thank you, Mr. Gingras. Questions from the committee? Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Mr. Gingrich. Mike, so we had already made a transfer to the library earlier this year, which you have listed for $139,000, and that was so we hit the accreditation number. But what confuses me is we needed to do that, otherwise they would have lost accreditation, but yet in the transfers above, we're transferring out $10,000 for electricity, office supplies of $10,395, and $40,000 for books and subscriptions away from the library to other departments. So we transferred it in to gain the accreditation, and then now we're taking it back to use for other departments. Do they still receive accreditation? Does that affect accreditation?
When the library director submits to the accreditation, they're looking for the appropriation. How much was budgeted, how much was appropriated. They don't really look at what you spent as part of this process. If there's available funds, it would either float to free cash, you know, we would close that out at the end of the year, or we transfer it to another department. So that's my understanding.
Thank you. Yeah, the question was just in regards to the risk of losing accreditation, but I think you answered that. My last question is to Mr. Labossiere. If somebody could explain to me what $450,000 in outside services to the water department would entail.
That would cover all the expenses for our water breaks. We're well over that account, that line item.
Okay, so when we first approved the water project, you know, for Winona and the Lowell Street pipes and such, we actually asked if there was additional money in for water mains, and the answer was yes, that it was accounted for because we understood that there would be a significant amount of water main breaks. So this is above and beyond money that was already funded for that? We had that many water main breaks?
Correct. We could only charge off water breaks that were associated with the water main work. We did that to the SRF account, but we couldn't, you know, there was plenty of breaks that we had that had nothing to do with the water project.
Thank you.
All set, Councilor Turco.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm actually just going to delve into that just a little further, Mr. Labossiere, if you could, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Bob. So can you just explain the process of outside services when there is a water main break? I know we have an inside crew. I know that that crew is minimal at best. So just go through the process. If there's a water main break, what happens, and then how you contract outside services, just for my own edification.
So we have a list of emergency contractors that we use. We rotate through them. So I don't have a crew to dig the water main breaks. So every break has to go out to another company to come in to dig it and to make the repairs. So this goes to cover those costs. It's expensive. We have to use prevailing wage. Prevailing wage is a very expensive way of doing it, so.
You're kind of leading to my question, actually, through you, Mr. Chairman. So wouldn't it be more cost-effective to hire more people in-house so we wouldn't have to go through such an exorbitant amount of outside services?
Yes, and we've had extreme difficulty finding people for those positions. Our Department of Public Works is down right now, similar to police and fire, not to that degree, but we are having difficulty finding water distribution, water treatment positions. Those are positions that require licenses and certifications, and we're having difficulty. We've had some meetings with the union to try to come up with ways to entice people to move towards these jobs, but we are having extreme difficulty in filling those positions.
So through you again, Mr. Chairman, to you, Mr. Mayor. So currently, are we advertising to try to get more help in regards to water main breaks and DPW services currently?
Yes, the first thing we did was water treatment. That was the positions that we needed to fill first because of some tragedies and just some people retiring and some injuries. So the focus was on treatment at first. We did fund those positions in this budget. I'd have to check with Human Resources. I'm not exactly sure if they're out yet. I know they were planning to be, but we've had some discussions with the union in order to come up with our plan. So I don't know if they're out yet, but I know they're budgeted and the plan is to get those out pretty quickly. But yeah, we certainly any help in terms of people that you may know, those are jobs we need and looking for the right people.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Rossignol. Other members of the Council Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm ready to make a motion when you're all set.
Any Councilor Turco?
Well, my apologies, Councilor Gould. Just through you to Mr. Gingrich. Mike, one question regarding prevailing wage. You know, I understand it's an expensive venture, but I thought there was a caveat with prevailing wage that if you used a sole proprietorship or partnership that you didn't have to abide by prevailing wage if it was a single owner business. I know that we did that with one of the painting projects within City Hall. Maybe Mr. Labossiere will know better, but I thought there was one caveat there. So I'm wondering if, you know, there's a way that there's a guy that owns a backhoe that is in the business that can dig some holes. So.
We do have a contractor now that's a sole proprietor that comes in to help us for small maintenance stuff, but you just can't do a water main break with one person. He has a smaller piece of equipment that we use. We need to get a crew in to do the bigger projects.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Mr. Gingrich, do you want to speak to the adjustment you want to make to this transfer request?
Sure. As I indicated earlier, if you look down at the water and sewer enterprise, I had in a previous transfer transferred overtime wages already. So what I want to do is amend this request to be $450,000 from current revenue water charges to outside services, $450,000, and delete the overtime of $150,000.
Thank you, Mr. Gingrich. Do you have that, Councilor Gould? Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to approve under the general fund budget from various department accounts the amount of $193,195, and also the unreserved fund balance, account number 100-0000-35901, in the amount of $514,000 for a total of $707,195 to various department accounts in the see attached list if necessary, in the amount of $707,195. So move, Mr. Chairman.
Council, you can press on with the other two.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, under golf course, motion to move from current revenue greens fees, account 440-06-995-42602, in the amount of $100,000 to maturing principal, account number 440-06-998-59100, again in the amount of $100,000. So move, Mr. Chairman. And also, under the water and sewer enterprise, move from current revenue water charges, account number 440-06-995-42602, in the amount of $450,000 to outside services, account number 460-044-2053125, again in the amount of $450,000. So move, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, you heard the motion from Councilor Gould. On the motion, seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Gould.
Yes.
Welton. Turco.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Councilors, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Council, you heard the motion from Councilor Gould. All in favor? Any opposed? To vote? We are adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry. Captain, just step to the mic. Thank you.
Just wanted to come up
Chief.
and tell you how much the department appreciates the support we've been getting from the council, from the mayor, from State Rep Tom Walsh. It's been a challenging year, and across the country they're talking about taking funding away from police, and obviously based on what happened tonight and what happened with the budget process, this is a very different place to work, and it really means a lot to the men and women of the police department, and I just wanted to take a minute and tell you that personally. This means tremendous amount. It's a really good boost of their morale. So thank you all very much, and we really appreciate it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Council, just a reminder not to go anywhere. We're going to meet here in a special meeting starting momentarily.